Are you able to see my screen?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so guys, welcome again. Good evening to everybody. Thank you for joining this session. I know you guys are all working COVID times, extending your hours, so we really appreciate you taking the time to join us for this session. And again, like we mentioned, we're looking for ideas as to when we could actually conduct these sessions. If you think it's more comfortable for you to join over a weekend or an early morning during the weekdays before work starts in, I mean, we're open for options. So, please do use the feedback form that we'll send out later to kind of tell us what times are suitable and also what kind of sessions you would like to see in the future. And again, it's not going to be only myself and Niket presenting all the times. We want to see more participation from the group, and hopefully we'll have external participants, external people also presenting. So a few words about myself. I'm Sandeep. I'm a senior sales engineer with Splunk. But again, the reason I'm joining the user groups is because I'm kind of passionate about Splunk. I think Splunk is a great platform. So I'm going to be doing very little about Splunk selling and more about our experiences in terms of building good solutions using Splunk and things like that. Add-on Builder is a phenomenal tool, and we thought that we'll do a quick session about Add-on Builder as part of this group here, so that you guys can start using it. We think it's a great product which very few people are using, and we just want to make sure more people are using it. It's a free app again. As part of the session, as usual, they could be forward-looking statements because both Niket and I are privy to some features that could be coming in the future. We'll try to limit it to what is available today, but just to keep the excitement rolling, we may talk about something that may be coming, but the typical forward-looking statements apply. So please use those roadmap outlines carefully and make sure you don't commit to your customer about a product that's not yet released. Okay, so the first thing that we want to talk about is obviously you guys know about Splunk already. It's the data to everything platform. So you know that Splunk can work against any data structure, any source, any time scale, any insight, any action. So what I'm going to be talking about is kind of how you can go to any source. You already know data structure, any data structure is possible. Splunk can ingest in JSON, XML, CSV files, log files, events, and stuff like that. But here today, we're going to be focusing more about how do you get any kind of data into Splunk in terms of querying a particular system and so on and so forth. Okay. So these are just a sample of what data sources are available with Splunk. You can ingest log files, config messages, traps, alerts, metrics, and there are a host of solutions that can actually get data into Splunk. Now, once that data is in Splunk, you know how easy it is to kind of go through it, report on that data and things like that. But what we're going to focus on today's session is, let's say you have an authentication system. How do you query that so that you can fetch that data into Splunk? Or let's say you have some Windows system, and how do you get that data into Splunk? Or a database environment, how do you get that data into Splunk? So as long as you have a mechanism of fetching data into, collecting data automatically or through a script, it's possible to fetch that data into Splunk. Okay, and the add-on builder was actually built in-house in Splunk, but it was built with the purpose of making sure that it's very easy to build these add-ons. I know that adding data or querying information is not very difficult, but there are people who are not really dev focused, and they wanted to build this kind of a solution where it makes that entire development activity much simpler. But it doesn't stop there, right? So we provide you the correct step-by-step mechanisms to create an add-on. Again, for people who are not familiar with Splunk terminology, we have something called as technology add-ons or TAs, which provide a mechanism to fetch data from a particular system. Then we have something called as a visualization, which is what Niket will cover in his session today. And then we have finally apps which provide reports and dashboards on that particular technology, right? The goal of the add-on builder is to provide you the steps of creating the technology add-on. And then we'll also provide you a mechanism of creating alert actions. I'll come to the demo in terms of what an alert action is, but a very high level view is that how can you push events from Splunk into the destination system? So like, for example, if you have ServiceNow, and let's say you want all the events in Splunk to create associated tickets in ServiceNow. So that is something but alert action. So you create an action such that those events will translate and create incidents in ServiceNow. That's just a simple example. But obviously, it becomes amazing because, you can create all kinds of use cases. So, I helped customers create changes in ServiceNow. I helped uh, create some kind of automation using this solution. So there's a lot of things that you can actually do. The add-on builder is also built such that you actually follow the best practices for developing your add-ons, so that it's compliant, right? So we want to make sure that you don't just create an add-on just to use it for that one very specific use case, but try to publish that use case on our Splunk base app portal so that it's available for a lot of users. But at the same time, when you publish it there, we want to make sure that it follows a particular security model, it follows best practices, naming conventions, and all of those kind of things. So, and we also provide you mechanisms like SIM compliance, which I'll come to shortly, and provide the most important thing is that, it provides a certification readiness, which will test how compatible it is and whether it can be pushed to all systems, will it work on different mechanisms and stuff like that. We'll show you many of those aspects as part of the demo. Okay. All right. So without getting into more of these slides, I'll come back to these slides after we finish the demonstration. We want to keep this as demo heavy as possible. So this is my Splunk system here. Hope everybody's able to see my screen. So I'm going to launch on build. Okay, again, the add-on builder is a free app. You should be able to download it from Splunk Pay. So let me get started there. So go to Splunk Pay, search for add-on builder, and that'll be the first link there. Okay, so this is the add-on builder. So go ahead and download that. Now, the add-on builder is typically needs to be built on your development environment so that you can test it out and things like that. So typically, you should not install it on your search head or your production environment and things like that. So ideally, if you have like a dev environment, install it there. In my environment, I have both a search head and an indexer. So I'll talk about what kind of changes I'll have to make when I'm building it and things like that. So the first page that you're able to see, I hope it's visible to everybody. You'll get to see a list view of all the add-ons that I have built, and I can also go into other apps and add-ons that are already available. Okay, so it is possible to import an existing add-on into add-on builder so that you can actually add your additional capabilities. So like, for example, let's say you downloaded the ServiceNow add-on, but the existing ServiceNow add-on does not allow for a mechanism to create change tickets. And let's say you want to add that additional alert action into the solution. So that's possible to do that this way. Now, for this purpose, what we will do is we'll just go ahead and create a new add-on from scratch. Okay, so let me go ahead and click on new add-on. So we're just going to call this as, I just call it as a dummy add-on, just to show you what are the scripts that are available. So you can mention who's the owner. You can actually just mention or whatever you like. You can your own name, provide a version number. Now, this part is important. You will mention whether it's visible or not. So it's possible that you can make an add-on completely invisible to the user so that you make all the configuration changes behind the scenes. But in this example, I want to create an add-on where it'll be possible to load the add-on directly on the search head, configure it on the search page itself, and so on. You can also choose what kind of icon it should display and things like that. So in fact, let me go ahead and upload an icon here. You can see that you can add your own icons. It basically takes any picture itself. So you can add any picture, all of those things here. Choose your theme color and stuff like that. Okay. So this is the first step. Now, what happens behind the scenes is, I'll try to show you all sides of it. So if you look over here, I am logged into my chat system. As soon as I created that particular solution over there, you can see that it creates that add-on folder itself. So there is a T8 dummy add-on page. Let me just make sure it's slightly bigger. And it creates a structure within it. Okay. So if in case you go look under local, it should have created an app.conf. If you look under default, your anything like, for example, if I had created some kind of configuration steps, it will all come up over there. So you can actually it creates an entire structure so that you can either add things manually or you can control everything from the graphical user interface. So the first page that you get to see is actually the configure data collection. So, you can see there are different options we can configure on the add-on builder. We can use it for configuring the data collection. So how does the add-on collect data from an end system? So that end system could be, like I said, any solution that supports REST endpoints, or you could also provide a mechanism where you can run a script and fetch that data into Splunk. We may provide a mechanism to manage the source types created. So, again, from the purpose of, if you're not very familiar with Splunk, you don't understand props.conf, we've provided an easier mechanism wherein which you can control what all the source type does and so on. Then we have extract fields. Again, I'll show you some of these things as we run through the demo, because that way it'll be a lot easier to visualize how it works. One thing that I want to talk about is the create alert actions piece of it. So the create alert actions is where, we mentioned that if you want to create and let's send data from Splunk to the third party system, then you'll have to use that create alert actions. Now, this is the main page where you'll get to see whether you want to configure data collections or create alert actions, but it'll also show you what are all the inputs and extracted fields that you have already developed. Okay. So let's go ahead and create a data collection. Now, for the purposes of this demo, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this thing called RecRes, which is basically like a free REST API solution. So, it provides fake data, provides mechanisms to query information, and so on and so forth. So, like, for example, if you were to do a list users, you run this particular thing, it'll show you which are all the associated users. So, like, for example, if I were to launch this in a separate page, it'll give you information like this. So it provides you all JSON formatted text, and that has all the content of what you're looking for. Okay. And what we're going to start with initially is let's start with a single user query. So we'll make it simpler to understand and so on. So let's say there are lots and lots of users and you're interested in fetching the details of only one particular user. So it says that the way to query it is /API/users/2. That 2 happens to be the ID of the user. And when I click on that, it shows you the response there. So hang on, sorry. This is the structured response. So it shows you that, this is the output. So you can see that the data is structured within a data field. The ID is 2. The email for that user is so-and-so. Oops. First name, last name, and so on. You also see something called as an ad, which is obviously this REST endpoint is supported by advertisement. So, they probably get that information added over there. But this is the REST endpoint, right? Now, if you guys are not very familiar or comfortable with how to read or process data, especially like if I go to list users and I click on this, that's a ton of information to process. You don't know how to read it and so on. What I would recommend, again, we will try to add all of these links into the solutions that we're using, is I use something called as a JSON formatter. Just a moment here. So it's just JSON formatter.curiousconcept.com. What you do is just copy paste that JSON file and automatically structure to tell you what is the format. So you can see that there is a page, per page, total pages, and so on. And within the data, there are multiple rows. So each row will have details of the ID, the email, the first name, last name, and the avatar. So you can see that there are 6 records in this output. And what we need to process is basically within that data, and each one of them will have these fields. So that becomes a rough outline of what you want to extract. Now, understanding this format is kind of important because, when you build the add-on, all those Splunk will automatically ingest the data and automatically structure the data and so on. If you want to make it simpler for the users to ingest the data and make it as out of the box as possible, it'll help to a large extent to understand how the JSON data is structured. Now, what I'm going to do over here is let's take a simple JSON to begin with. So I'm going to go with single user and I'm going to click on this. So this is my data. So you can see that I have just one record in this data and that has this information, right? So this is what I want to extract now. Now, what I can do over here is let's go back to our add-on builder. I'll create a new input. Now you see, as soon as I choose what kind of data collection I want to choose, it provides me 3 options. One is using a REST API. Second option is using shell commands, wherein, like, let's say instead of a REST API, I want to run a simple command. It could be something like ls, it could be ps, it could be any of those things, right? And then the third option is Python code. So I'll show you with both REST API as well as Python code. So for the first example, let's go with REST API. Let's say that I want to fetch data, right? So, again, the best practice recommendation is, you probably want to start with dummy add-on because that's the add-on name. Then you say get user data. So that would be my source type. Again, it depends on how you want to structure it. It just is better this way because, you know exactly which add-on you're using, how it's fetching the data, and so on. It becomes easy when you're troubleshooting. So let's say the input display name is get user details for the ID mentioned. Okay. Or let's just make it get user details. Now, I'm going to say the collection interval by default is about 300 seconds. That's once every 5 minutes. But, maybe the user records don't change. So I can even make it as 86,400, which is a day approximately. Now, next part is very important. It has two tabs. One is called a data input parameters tab, and the other one is an add-on setup parameters tab. Okay. Now, the add-on setup parameters tab is what will appear when you choose to configure the add-on. So what you can do over here is things like, you can say, to query this particular thing, I need a server URL. Okay. To give you guys an idea about what that server URL is, if I go back over here, it tells you very clearly saying that if you want to list the users, this is the endpoint. So maybe I need this part here, right? So I go back over here and I can see the default value here is this. Okay. So recrest.in is my default username. Now, why do I want to present that? Because let's take a different example. Let's say you're configuring App Dynamics. Now, each URL for a particular customer will be different. You could have bankofamerica.appdynamics.com as one URL. You go to a different customer, it'll be citibank.bankofamerica.com. You go to the third one, it could be hdfc.appdynamics.com. Okay, so it's important that you kind of make this as variable as possible. So maybe I have a server URL. The other thing is that I could have something like a username to authenticate, and I could have a password. Okay. Now you can choose whether you want to set that up globally or you can use your own custom thing. So, like for example, instead of a password, maybe you have something called, token string. Now, I would recommend using the password for doing that because whatever you type in over there, it'll be hidden out. Okay, so it becomes easier for you doing that. Now, in this particular example, there is no authentication at all. So I'm going to delete this. In fact, let's leave it on. It's just that I won't use it. Okay. Now that is the add-on setup parameters. The next part is data input parameters. Now what this means is that this is the overall configuration of the add-on. Remember, in a single add-on, you can provide multiple collection mechanisms. So like, for example, if you were doing App Dynamics data collection, maybe one data collection mechanism is to get the inventory of all the nodes discovered or all the services discovered. Another data collection mechanism could be that I want to fetch performance, wherein, I get the performance of maybe response times. The other data collection mechanism is maybe OS related metrics. So all the CPU, memory, network, disk, and so on. So you could have multiple data inputs for a single add-on. So in this particular case, I am doing an add-on for get user details, right? So I will just get pass user ID here because that's the parameter that I want to pass. And, I'll just add the value 2 here because, that we're verifying that thing here. So 3 things. One is the source type details. One is the add-on setup parameters. And the third one is the data input parameters. Again, if you notice over here, let's say server URL is a required field. Username and password are not required fields. Okay. Now, data input parameters is where, you could have a lot of different things. You can add drop downs. You can add multiple drop downs. It'll take multiple options together. You can have radio buttons. All of those kind of cool things can be added in the data input parameters. Again, when we create the add-on finally, it'll make a lot more sense. Okay. So let's go ahead and click on next. Okay. So let me change that. Get user details. Okay. I think it's because of this guy here. Yeah, I think maybe I've created another add-on, so that's why it's giving that problem, I guess. Oops, no. The same thing I've created. Yeah. If you have questions, go ahead and ask. It should be no problem. I see something in the chat session. Well, I fix this. I can have a look at it. If you have questions, where should they be posted? So Rakesh, if you have a question, you can ask them right away. I can answer them right now. Otherwise, we could wait till the end. Okay, anyway, I'm having some trouble with this, so let me just go ahead and open it elsewhere. Sorry, Karthika, you have a question?
Rakesh here. I had a question. In fact, I have two questions. Yeah, for building this add-on using the REST API, you showed us the basic authentication using username and the password. But nowadays, most of the REST APIs, I mean, I've seen that in a few of the APIs in Cisco, we use OAuth, or sometimes we are planning to go for multi-factor authentication. So those kind of authentications are also supported?
I mean, not directly, but indirectly. So, we have Karthika, our expert, who actually helped build OAuth authentication with another add-on. So, maybe that we can provide you as steps at the end of it. But, I'll see if I can show you some code or some other mechanisms in which you can do that.
Okay, sure. Thanks, Sandeep. The second question is, you showed the data can be fetched at regular intervals. I mean, we can specify the periodicity in seconds. Correct. So what is the smallest periodicity? I mean, it can go to 1 second because it will put, if I do that, it will put too much of load on the system.
Correct. I mean, theoretically, it is possible to do 1 second, but practically, it makes sense to do the lowest is 30 seconds that we support. But I recommend doing 300 seconds. Again, depends on the use cases. Don't go below 30 seconds. It becomes unnecessary.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we need to fetch the data real time. That's the reason I'm asking what is the smallest interval. And associated with the collection interval is the size of the data, because Cisco routers and switches, you might be aware, they can return you tons of data. So is there any upper limit with the REST API with which your add-on is comfortable with? And if there is more amount of data than what can be fetched in one go, is it possible to do the pagination if the source system supports pagination?
Yeah, so for pagination support, it is possible, but you'll probably have to write a script. So like, for example, if I do a REST endpoint, then within the REST endpoint, there is a possibility of saying that I want to fetch only 500 records, 2000 records at a time. And then we kind of create a checkpoint, and it goes and reads the checkpoint and starts that process again until that thing is completely read.
Okay, Sandeep. I would like to have the pointers to the, such a documentation. That will be
helpful. Absolutely. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll give that to you. Sorry, I realized my mistake, so I'm going to fix the existing one itself very quickly. So data input parameters, I'm just going to add user ID. Hopefully it doesn't create a problem for me, but anyway, we'll just give it a shot. Okay, so you'll come to this particular page over here. So you can see that the what all you can pass are the REST URL, and then it has the user ID and password and so on. So let's say that we go ahead and enter the add-on setup parameters as that rec-rest.ini. That's the base URL. It mentions that you have to use server URL as the username for that. Now within the data inputs, you can see scroll down below that these are all the parameters that this particular URL takes. So here, if I type in 2 and you just hover over there, it'll tell you how you access that. So it says $user ID, right? So that is how you access that. And if you click on this, it takes you to the docs page itself, which will tell you exactly how you access all different parameters. So now that is very important because for add-on setup parameters, that is the global settings, you need to do a slightly different way of getting the parameters. So here, if I go here, I've kind of copied it. So I'll just use that here. So let's do this one. Okay. basically the way you access the global parameters is using this one here, underscore underscore settings underscore underscore additional parameters dot server URL. So here it is just server URL. Because you want to access that entire thing, you have to pass this whole thing. Now, so basically it gets https://rec/rest.in. Now over that, you basically have to pass the URL that you want to pass, right? So in my case, it happens to be this one here. Okay. Oh, no, that's the all users. So let's go back to just the individual user. Okay, so I'm deleting all of these things. Okay, so it's going to call that, and then instead of the 2, you want to actually pass the parameter of what the actual user ID holds. So here I will go ahead and just say $, and my variable here is called user ID 2. So I'm going to use user ID 2, and I'm going to close it. Okay, now I'm just going to use a get parameter because it's fine. It's not really complex and stuff like that. And then let's just test it. So it's telling me that user ID 2 is for Janet Weaver. And then, these are the details. So if I just go back down here and let's try it for a completely different user, and let's see if that REST API query is working. So you see that for ID 4, it's a different person altogether. So you have Eve Holt, who's there for ID 4. So this is a very easy way in which you can add customizability to your REST endpoint. And, again, once I finish this, in fact, maybe I can just finish this particular exercise over here. And we'll show you how to configure this app itself. Now, there is a possibility that I might need to restart the search head because the add-on has been saved and I need to reload those settings. If that happens, I'll kind of open an existing add-on that has already been created. All right, so let's say that that add-on has been created. So if you go back to Splunk, you should be able to see that dummy add-on here. Yeah, there you go, dummy add-on. So when you click on that, so yeah, I was scared of this. So basically it needs a restart for that to work. So what I'll do instead is I'll go back and open an add-on that I've already created. So the add-on that we had created just before we started this session is called test add-on. So you see this very familiar add-on configuration page. So you go to the configuration page and whatever we configured in fact, let's do that here. So I go back to the configure, pick any one of these things. So these are the add-on setup parameters. So I provide server URL, username, and password. So is this for dummy data? Let's open test add-on itself. So yeah, you have just a server URL here. And the data input parameter for that is user ID. So if you go over here, you'll see that in the configuration page, in the add-on settings, I have the server URL. So whatever I create in the form will reflect in the configuration page. After that, you also have mechanism to choose what kind of logging levels you would want, debug, info, warning, and so on. Again, when I come to the script section of it, that will become easier to understand. And finally, you need to configure the inputs. So each one that you configure as a data collection mechanism over here comes up as an input over here. So if I click on create new input, you'll see all of those different mechanisms configured here. So if I say get user details, and let's say get details or ID 6, for example. So I can just go ahead and change that ID to 6. I can add it to whichever index I want. And I can say I want to query this for updates every 86,400 seconds. And I click on it. Okay. So now all of those things will come into that index. So let's go ahead and just search for that. Okay. So if you scroll down over here, you get data ID. So you can see that number 6 has also been queried. Earlier, I was getting only for 2. So if I click on 6, you'll get to see that particular details over here. So suddenly now, instead of the previous use case, I started collecting data for Tracy Ramos also. Okay. So it's as simple as doing that. The other add-on that I have built over here is I've also created one single add-on for getting the details for all users. So here, if I just go ahead and edit this guy, I've used that input for getting all users, and I collect data every 300 seconds and I put it into the default index itself. And what I've done is I've said, I want a checkpoint to be there. So, I'll mention that, that from ID will always be 0. That means it collects all data from beginning, but then you can use that checkpoint process to say that, I've already recorded data from 0 to 500. Next subsequent run should only check from 501 and so on and so forth. So let's actually get into that part now. So the second mechanism that I'm going to show you over here is we go ahead with the option of not using the REST endpoint directly, but via a script. Okay. So what I do over here is, again, data input parameters, I've just added one variable called from ID. That means from where I want to start. The rest remains the same. The add-on set of parameters, you don't need to change because it's already been configured. When I click on next, what Splunk does is it automatically creates a boilerplate or a script saying, the how you need to fetch the data and so on and so forth. Okay. Now here, okay, I think Kamlesh said there are questions on Slack. Okay, so Rakesh has a question, so that's fine.
Yeah, we have already answered those, Sandeep. But we will follow up on Rakesh's question around sharing the documentation around it. I've just logged them in Slack.
Awesome, excellent. Okay, so the good thing about the script feature is that it creates a boilerplate of Python script. So technically, even if you don't know Python, it's very easy to just go through the script and then say what needs to happen. So like, for example, it'll automatically create indication saying that, hey, you have from ID. This is how you fetch it into this particular variable. You have server URL. You have to use this function to get that into this variable. It'll also tell you things like, it uses a simple helper.send HTTP request to fetch the data from that REST endpoint. So all you have to do is you just say that take the global user URL and then add that query. So now instead of doing a query against API/user/2, I will just do it against API/users, which is probably going to get it for all users. After that, again, go back here and let's go ahead and run this for list users. So this is the output that I'm going to get, right? So what I can do over here is you can say that, I want to fetch all the data from that data subsegment. And within that, there are multiple elements, right? So now it just becomes simple Python script where you go ahead and say user list is our JSON of data, where basically I'll skip through many of these things because it's kind of easy to understand. So main thing I want you guys to focus on is response equal to send HTTP request against that user. I'm still doing a get method over here. And I'm doing an RJSON equal to response.json. So, response, whatever is there, it converts that into a JSON object automatically. After that, I'll come back to the checkpoint later. But, basically what we're doing is I start with user list equal to RJSON of data. So go back over here. This object gets included into this user list. Then it is as simple as processing it through a for loop, saying that for user in user list, you process that. And then this is the important part. Again, all of these things are provided as help sections to you guys. You just have to go and say that here. So, like you say, create a new event, helper.new event, provide the source type, index, and so on. The good part about the entire add-on builder experience is that you can just use helper.get input type, get output index, and so on, and it'll automatically take it from the configuration page. You don't have to hard code anything. The only thing that you need to probably do is that entire data, you need to create it as a data segment. So I say data equal to whatever is there in that user field. Now, because that user field is the entire JSON object and I need to convert it into a string, I'm just going to do a JSON.dumps of that particular user. Again, I'm going to share these script samples, even if you want to kind of see, go back and refer and things like that. But it's fairly straightforward and easy how you build that. The final segment is ew.write event, which is basically writes all of those events into Splunk. Okay. Chandu wants to show something. Chandu, you wanted to show something on the screen?
No, Sandeep. No, Sandeep. Thank you.
Okay. Don't know how to get out of this now. Okay, I think I did. All right. So now let's just go ahead and test it. So the cool thing about the add-on builder is when I click on test, it shows you the exact output as it'll appear. So you can see that what has happened over here is if I didn't use the script here, and the output for entire Splunk would be this one single page. Instead, what I've done is I've created a script which kind of runs through that for loop, and it creates each one of those events separately. So ID2 is one event, ID3 is one event, 8 is one event, 10 is one event, and so on and so forth. So here, this is exactly how I want to create it. So it creates all of them as single events over here for you. Okay. Now, after this is done, we provide you a mechanism to go and edit that particular source type. So now in this particular case, it's JSON formatted. So, it's possible that Splunk will automatically extract all of that information for you and things like that. But let's say for some instance, it wasn't. So what I say is get users, I go ahead and click on edit. And let's say I have some sample data. You can upload that data over here so you can find out how you want to structure the data, how timestamp is there, all of those things. So I'll leave all of these things defaults for now, but this is essentially the same interface you have if you were to go to settings and add data. Okay, so it's pretty much the same thing here. Now, the only thing that I would recommend doing over here is I would add this particular field over here. So in the advanced tab, go ahead and add indexed extractions equal to JSON. Now, why would I want to do that is because once that data is getting indexed itself, it'll know that it is JSON structured. So it'll automatically make your queries much faster and things like that. Again, you could also use something like KV mode equal to JSON so that all extractions happen at such time. But if you have large, kind of large JSON fields, I would recommend doing an index extractions as JSON. This is the only thing that I've possibly done over here. Okay. Once that is done, so if I go back over here and let's run it against the other one here. So get users. Now you'll see that all of those events have started coming up over here. And not only that, extractions happen automatically. So it tells you what the avatar is, what are the emails, what are the first names, all of those things are extracted automatically, right? So this becomes easy for you to kind of know that, get that entire data. So basically from this, which is very difficult to manage, you created an add-on, which is very easy for you guys to go back and refer and so on. Okay. So this is like a simple way of using the add-on builder. What I'll do is now next, I will also cover how you can actually create an alert action very easily. Now, an alert action is essentially, like I said, converting data from Splunk to the end system. So in this particular case, it is recres, right? So let's go back here. So you can see that recres has a mechanism to also create a user ID. Okay. And it says that it again uses API/users, but you have to pass an object. So in this case, name is Morpheus, job is leader. So these are the two parameters that we are creating. Now, in add-on builder, there's this field, this particular tab called create alert actions. Again, I've created an alert action already, but I'll just show you what are the options you'll get. So here you can say that, so for the purpose of illustration, let's go ahead and say, I want to create, okay, this particular thing only allows creation of users, but let's take, you want to do, I'll just say resource. We don't have an endpoint, but I'll just say resource. So create a resource. Okay. I will not add any parameters over here, but just to show you as to how it works. We also have this option where you can make this particular thing compatible with enterprise security's adaptive response actions. So, you can provide all the category tasks so that it is searchable within enterprise security. So like, for example, I'll say, since it's a resource, maybe it is permission control, maybe it is create a resource, maybe it is endpoint related, choose the vendor. If you don't have, you can provide your own. I'll just call it as recres. And so on, right? So you can do all of those things here. Now click on next. Okay, so I have to do a version. Now it has the same parameters. So the add-on setup parameters doesn't change, but alert actions has. So let's say to create a new resource, I require something like a resource name. And maybe I just have a drop-down. The drop-down could be, I mean, in this case, it may not make sense, but I'll just say I want to add severity. And let's just add the options of high, okay. So what happens over here is it'll provide those options to the end user. And click on next. Now again, you see that it creates an outline script for you. And again, if you notice over here, it says that there's something called a sample code macro start and end. And if you go up over here, you will see all of those things. So server URL is something that we created. Resource name is what we've added in the list of items. Severity is also something that we've added. So if you go back over here and let's say you add a new thing, which is just a radio button, and you click on next, that entire code gets modified to include that new thing also. So you see the radio group. So it becomes easy essentially for you to go ahead and modify your particular script. So again, I have already created one, which is called create new user. And again, similar script, I've used a REST endpoint to pass the values. The only difference now is that I'm actually sending a data packet. So you can see that I've created a data structure saying it uses name and job, and I've just called it a template, and data of name, data of job equal to username and job name, which we are fetching from the form. So it's very straightforward. Then you call that function and test it out to see if it ends up creating that into the end system. Okay. So again, I've obviously corrected all of these scripts, so it won't give any error. But if you had a particular problem, so like for example, I'll try to make a particular mistake over here. So it'll give out errors to you. So it's easy for you to troubleshoot exactly where the problem exists. So it's a very nice interface in which you can go back and kind of do all the stuff that you want. Now, those alert actions that we have just created, you can, so let's say I want to create multiple users at one shot. Okay. So I'll just go to index equal to internal stats count by source type, comma index maybe. And instead of last 24 hours, let's just do it for 15 minutes. Okay. So I have 14 objects, but let's say I want to do this only for the first 5. So I got this, right? So here, when I click on save as alert and scroll down, you'll see a new trigger alert action called create new user and the same icon that I used over there. And here, for each one of those rows to trigger that same script, you just have to say .result source type. And let's say the job name always goes to the same particular job. So I will say this goes to job name. Oh, no, sorry. It should be indexed here. Basically the name of the field that you're passing as value. Okay. So when you click on save. Oh, I think I should have. Oh, yeah. And let's say I want to run this right now, I'm just going to make this run once. Or you could also choose run every hour. So let's go ahead and run this at exactly top of the hour. And let's click on save so it gets saved. So we just want to see that trigger has kicked off. Okay. So we'll come back to this particular screen, just to make sure that it is working properly. But the other things that you can actually do over here in the add-on builder is you can also do things like extract fields. So let's say some data has already come in, right? So it shows you that get user details has 40 events come in already. You can choose whether you want to do manual extraction, assisted extraction, or manual transformation. So I'll choose assisted extraction. It has automatically recognized it's a JSON, but otherwise, it will show you what kind of structure it is and things like that. And then here you can do your extraction. So, just to give you an idea about how it will look, go back here. Yeah, it looks something like what you guys are familiar with. So you can do like a regular expression where you just select that particular section and say that this is actually that field, this is that field. Pretty much how you would do to new data elements where you select the data and then mark the data as such, right? So all of that field extractions is possible using this kind of a mechanism. The last thing that I want to kind of cover is the map to data models part of it. Now, this becomes very important now because just creating add-ons is not useful anymore. So because you have premium solutions like enterprise security, IT service intelligence, and so on, which are built on particular domains. So like, for example, if you were to say, get me operating system related metrics, and let's say you create an add-on for only Unix. Now, next time you get data from, let's say, Windows or a Macintosh, you have to create separate reports all over again, right? So the data model provides you a mechanism where you can map it to a particular structure. So here in this case, if I were to do a new data model mapping, and let's just call this as users, and here I will say I have get users. So this is all my data. Click on save. So here you can choose the data models that you want to map the data to. So you can see that have all the data models that I've installed on my search head become visible over here. What we do recommend is you do the mapping according to the CIM, which is the Common Information Model. We talked about that in the last session, but you could also map it to any of the existing ITSI data models also. So like, for example, let's say you built an add-on to fetch data from an unsupported operating system within ITSI. Let's say a very old HP UX system. So you can say that, hey, all of them are mapped to my host operating system for performance, okay? And it'll automatically say that, hey, you need to have at least these fields so that I can map to that. Or you can say inventory. So let's maybe just choose machine information for now. I'm going to click select. Now what happens over here is you can just say that, you know what, this last name, so I have host already. So I can say field alias maps to, so that host actually maps to a field over here. So in this case, maybe it is, it doesn't have anything really useful, but let's just, for the heck of saying that how that mapping works, you can say that, let's say that maps to the hypervisor ID. So essentially you do that data mapping exercise once over here, and automatically your add-on becomes compatible with the end solution. So like, for example, if you were to, let's say, collect data from an antivirus package and map it to the antivirus related data model, and then do this exercise once, then you don't have to do anything further. Your mapping exercise is also complete, and your enterprise security solution will automatically start reporting on all of the fetch data. So it becomes very simple for you to kind of manage. Okay. So I'm going to click on done over here. And the last thing that I want to talk about, again, I may not be able to demonstrate that here completely, but we have this option of validating that entire solution and packaging it. So now you can choose what all you want to map it against. So, like, for example, field extraction, I haven't done anything. I want to, let's say I want to check against best practices, data modeling. I know it's kind of bad. I want to do an app pre-certification and so on. So click on validate, and then you have to provide your username details over here. So hang on. Quickly save. Okay, let's just go ahead and validate. So what will happen over here is it'll start validating your entire setup to make sure it is compatible, it is using best practices and things like that. So, you'll get a page like this, which says that how many errors are there, how many warnings are there, what all tests have been done to make sure that it is working properly, and so on and so forth. So to make sure that, it is good enough for certifying. So, here right now it's a very simple app and I don't really have any issues with it. But, if there are any particular known flaws as such, it will tell me what needs to be done. No, I think it's still running. So we'll just give it another minute for this to finish.
So Sandeep, meanwhile, there was a question around the regex, the field extraction that you had shown. The question was from Diksha. For different payload, do we have regex option available?
Diksha, so for each source type, so sorry, Diksha, let me answer that first, and then you can ask further questions. So each source type becomes a payload. So the extract fields that we do over here will be per source type, if that makes sense. So let's say I want to do it for get user details, I will do the assisted attraction for that payload. If it for get users, then I do it for that particular thing, and so on. Make sense? Okay, while that's going on, and if you don't have any further questions on that, I'll quickly show you using this kind of a mechanism. We could create a complex add-on like we've created this for Symphony Summit. So if you see over here, I have 4 data inputs over here. How to create a Symphony Summit incident, how to create changes in Symphony Summit, how to create problems, or rather fetch data, incidents from Symphony Summit, fetch data from changes, problems, and so on. And again, I've given specific code as to how you can do that. So the question that was asked earlier, let's say you have very specific mechanisms to collect the data. So, you could have 2 different URLs to cause. Maybe the first one will do authentication. Then it uses that API key to pass on to the second string. Right? So you'll possibly have that in the scripted mechanism to do that. Or, like somebody mentioned, you want to do like a OAuth authentication. So maybe what you'll do is you provide that in the configuration page itself, where, there's a person clicks on that link and it authenticates in that system, and then you copy paste that token key here. So, all of those kind of options would be possible using this. All right, so this is still pending. Maybe, I'll show that at a later time, but hope it was kind of clear as to what all you can do with the add-on builder. Quite powerful. So in this demo thing that I'm kind of showing for Symphony Summit, I've created data gathering mechanisms for changes, config changes, incidents, problems, and I've also created an alert action to create the incident in the Symphony Summit itself. And all of that was done using the graphical user interface itself. I didn't have to go to the backend and all of that stuff. Once all of that is done, you can just click on that validate and package, download that package and distribute it to everybody. So it's become super simple to create your solutions. It look as professional as you would expect them to be, and so on. Okay? So it's a great tool. You should experiment with it, use it as much as possible. And again, reach out to us on the user group forum if you need help, understanding, or if you have run into any particular issues, or you have some feedback to give, all of that stuff, we can take it on the forum. All right, I think I've kind of exceeded the time already, but I'll pause for some questions if you guys have any. Otherwise, I'll hand it over to Niket.
So Sandeep, there is a follow-up question from Diksha. I think she has got same source type, different type of payload. Ideally, I feel that they should be different source types. But then her question was more in reference to that. I think you would want to follow up on Slack itself. The question is from Pratik, where he's asked that REST API works in Postman, doesn't work with add-on builder. So Pratik, if you want, can you ask specific question? So Sandeep, you may want to have a look at that as well in the Slack. It's a big question, but it seems like his question is also how to investigate. And I think that goes back to your point where we can actually enable debug mode in our add-on builder as well. And it logs some additional information for you to debug further.
Right. Yeah, there's only so much that we can do in a 1-hour session. So maybe we can have a follow-up session, maybe even like a one-on-one to kind of look at your particular thing. But the idea here was to kind of brief everybody on what its capabilities are and what we can do. And, obviously we can look at a particular use case and see if we can help in any particular way. So let me hand it over to Niket now for his session. And I can kind of continue chatting with the rest of the people offline.
Thanks, Sandeep. All right. All right. Hello, everyone. This is Niket, Nilay. I'm sales engineer with Splunk. I've been working on Splunk for around 7 years, and I've been with Splunk for 5 months now. So I'm going to talk about today on a topic called Splunk Custom Visualization API. I'm sharing my screen. Hope it's visible, the slide. We may be making some forward-looking statement during this session, so I just wanted to bring out the slide. If you are making any decisions, just make on whatever is available currently in market. Sandeep talked about the data to everything platform, and he talked about any source and his topic around add-on builder. What I'm actually going to talk about now is called any insight. And this is where you have different type of data and it is of any volume and it spans across various time scales. But you want to correlate that information and make meaning out of it and convey some story across your organization. That's when any insight comes into picture, and it's a combination of a lot of things, not just visualization. But what I am actually going to talk about is just the visualization piece around it, not correlation searches and all those aspects. So we know that Splunk already has around 13 built-in visualizations, and they are actually having a lot of advantages. So first of the things that we should try to do is, which visualization fits our needs best. And it has got a lot of advantages, right? I mean, we can actually configure these visualizations directly from UI or simple XML. These actually support drill down from UI or simple XML, and these also support a trellis layout. We can always extend these using our own custom CSS and JS so that we can tweak it as per our needs. If you have seen previous Conf sessions and all those things, like at least a couple of years now, these are also available on connected experience, like on mobile, TV, AR, or VR. And these visualizations are also available in the new dashboard framework. You should always check out the latest features every year, not every year, with every release. These visualizations get updated. For example, Trellis was added from version 7x onwards. One of the topics we actually discussed in our previous session as well around dashboard journey, and this, I feel that it's quite important for us to know, give this a thought, because we tend to go after, what looks really cool or really good. But we should also understand that storytelling is not just about looking good. We should make sure that it is easily comprehensible. It is conveying the message as well as the story. So we should, based on that, we should always choose the visualization which fits our needs well. Some of these things, like we should not waste our pixels when we are trying to create our dashboards, and we should know each visualizations have their own positive aspects as well as some of their limitations. So we should be aware of those. A couple of points that we should actually, we covered during our dashboard journey as well. When we are trying to use this visualization, our starting point should be UI. Then we can move on to simple XML configurations. Then if needed, we do CSS extensions, and we apply JavaScript for better control of our our visualizations. Hello, was there a question?
No questions. Continue.
Oh, okay. All right. So let's say that we are not satisfied with those 13 visualizations that are out there, and we actually, we looked at something out there which was really cool and which caught our attention. How do we get that visualization into Splunk? There are several ways. We are actually going to talk about something around custom visualizations, custom visualization API, but you can actually refer to some of the links that have been provided to other ways through which we can bring in a custom visualization within Splunk. Again, their own advantages and limitations. And some of these things, quite frankly, are, how how good of a developer you have got in your team versus what is your turnaround time and how much you want to make it reusable, whether you are a visualization company and you want to create something which should be available as an app itself. Based on those kind of criteria, you should come up with the approach that you should take for adopting any one of these mechanisms. And I also wanted to point out that during .conf, there was a session on building custom visualization using the new dashboard framework. We are not covering that today, but I mean, we can definitely keep that for a future session as well. Around custom visualizations, one of the first point that we should start with is we should go to Splunk base. We should check out any visualization that we are interested in, whether they are available on Splunk base or not. If you have not seen it before, Splunk base is like the app store for Splunk apps, and there is a category only for custom visualizations. So what I'm actually trying to show you is a screenshot from Splunk dashboard examples app. Again, this is a very good app for you guys to check out various features and learn dashboarding if you're just starting your journey with Splunk. So all these custom visualizations that are present in this screenshot or dashboard examples app are actually built by Splunk and supported by Splunk. Besides that, what this particular API does, custom visualization API does, is it allows you to introduce your own JS libraries. And D3 is just one of those examples, but JS libraries could be something like chart.js, highcharts.js. You can actually import whatever you are interested in. The advantages, obviously, you can get any visualizations into Splunk, and you can still go ahead and extend them using CSS and JS like you would do for your existing built-in visualizations. Some of the things, right? Some of the custom visualization may not support trellis or drill down. And they may not be available for connected experience as well. So like when you are trying to use them, be sure that whether it's actually built by Splunk or not, what kind of features it has, or whether you want to go ahead and create your own so that you control the code. Was there any questions so far? No, right? Okay. Okay, that must have been my mic or something. Yeah, so if we go to Splunk base, and let me just do that right away. If we go to Splunk base, we will see that if we search for visualizations, there are several visualizations that are already available. And don't just go by the count. Within a particular app, there may be multiple visualizations that are available for you. For example, machine learning toolkit, surprisingly, it's showing up under visualization section, right? The reason for that is that within machine learning toolkit, there are around 10 visualizations that come built in. So all these 10 visualizations you can go ahead and use in your Splunk deployments once you have machine learning toolkit. So the count is going to be pretty much high compared to, where did it go? Count is going to be pretty much high compared to what is being shown over here. But if you just browse through Splunk base, you would see that there are different kinds of visualizations that have already been built for you, and a lot of these are really powerful. So before you start thinking of developing or creating your own visualization, do make sure that you check out Splunk base and see whether the visualization already exists or not. So when you are searching for visualization, just make sure of checking out these icons. The one which I'm hovering right now shows that it's by Splunk. Others are app inspect past. I would actually just talk about what is Splunk app inspection, but we'll not be able to cover that in today's session. But it is the set of several tests that happen on your app to make sure that they are robust and they can be used in production. Something similar was shown to you during add-on builder session as well. So and using that, you can actually try to get the custom visualization that you need before you plan to start building one of your own. Now, today's session is actually going to be for building our own custom visualizations. Oops. Okay. So what does it do, right? So it gives us a framework. It gives us a template where we can actually import any of the charting libraries within Splunk, and we can create our own dashboards. If you are aware of any of these charting libraries, I've shown two examples. One is D3. It's got several examples where you can actually check out the visualization, and you can actually make them your own. For example, let's say I'm interested in this particular visualization. It will pop open the visualization with example of how the visualization is built using SVG, which is scalable vector graphic in this particular case, and then some dummy data which you can replace with your own Splunk query search results. Now, for this custom visualization part, when you are trying to actually code it, you would definitely need a person who is a web developer and who has prior experience with these libraries and JavaScript framework as well. So I'm just showing another example of high charts, and high chart is the chart which is used within Splunk, but then it's not just those charts which are currently available. High chart extends to several other things that we can actually create ourselves. So we can actually try to integrate any of these visualizations that we are interested in. So I would actually just provide you guys with some template code that I have got it from this particular Splunk documentation called Build Your Own Custom Visualization. But we just want to understand the structure of the dashboard before we proceed with any of those, right? So if you get a template dashboard app structure, it is quite similar to what we see in a regular Splunk app structure as well. So I'm actually going to talk about some of the things that are quite different and we should be aware of. One of the things that would happen is there would be a app name and there will be a visualization name under this particular hierarchy. Within visualization name, we can create our own source folder where we will put our visualization source JS file. This JavaScript file is where we will be coding ourselves. And once we think that our coding is done, we will actually build the project using Node Package Manager, and it will use Webpack to bundle the entire project together, and it will create a minified version of visualization JS. Once you're done with the app, right, you don't need source code and other folders that this process of build creates. You just need these visualization JS and visualization CSS file yourself that you've created for actual deployment or making it redistributable. Other things are some of the settings are there in visualization conf, save searches conf, and icons and all those things can be created through static folder. This is similar to how it would happen in any of the apps. So when we try to do our own development mode, one of the things we should make sure is something on the right. This ensures that while we are debugging, the code within Splunk is not minified so that we can actually see. There is no caching, but browser may still cache, so we should prefer to use incognito mode, or else we'll have to clean out browser history every time we rebuild. So these settings are important to be provided, set first in web.conf in Splunk HC local. So if we understand this, what I wanted to do here was I'll be sharing some of the this particular template code, and I'll be sharing the steps. It's not necessary for all of you to actually follow the steps. Try. Those of you who can do it right now can actually try it. Give me a second. And those who are not able to build, we can definitely use Slack later to understand, what worked or what did not work. So I am actually going to paste a GitHub link and a Google Drive link. If you have a GitHub account, you can actually get the template code from GitHub. And if you have got a Google Drive, otherwise you can actually try to get it from Google Drive. So just try to get the template code, and we will start the build process. So what we are trying to do is a Splunk documentation called build a custom visualization. This itself comes with all the steps that we are talking about. Hello, was there a question? All right. So this particular documentation talks about the steps that we are actually going to perform. Some of the things that I have actually done in the template that I've shared through link is that I've actually I've actually got the latest version of all the code, and because of which I had to change the template code which was provided in the documentation. So I'll try to get these things updated in the documentation and probably through a blog. But until then, we will try to use my own template, and we will try to go through these steps. So if you want to do it other way around, if you have got your own comfort time, you can actually try to go through these steps as well from the Splunk documentation. This is the GitHub link. So what I have provided is the complete template code. There is similar structure is there for the Google Drive shared folder as well. There is one. I hope that like we have got a mix of both Mac and Linux and Windows users. So there is a separate package JSON file required for Windows folder. And there is one folder where I'll be actually compiling first half. I'll be demoing it, and then we will actually integrate some of the things that is not present in build your custom visualization example. We will in this particular session, we will add a drill down, we will add a tooltip, we will add dark mode to our visualization. All right. Okay. Let me just bring up the couple of folders. All right. So this is my Splunk folder. This is my Splunk folder where all my apps are installed. I am actually going to get the template code, and it is inside a zip folder called template, my radial meter template. But within that zip folder, there is an app called my radial meter, and this is the app that we are going to configure today. So I'm actually going to open this particular app in Visual Studio Code. You can use any of your favorite editor. And we have to, we have to edit all these files individually. So even any simple file editor is also fine. So please feel free to use anything that you've got. So I hope I have pleased demo cards today, because last time when I was trying to do this demo using Visual Studio Code in user group, it hung up on me. So I've opened this particular app in Visual Studio Code, and we will start with some of the files and some of the things that we have seen, okay, from the folder structure just now. So some of the things that you would notice is this. Okay, sorry. First, we should actually try to before. All right, sorry. I just dived into the second step first. We need a console. We will go through some of the steps for building the project first, and then we'll edit it afterwards. Sorry about that. So first, we have actually got the code copied over, right? So we'll just move over to our applications folder. Static. visualization. And so in my particular example, I've got the app name also my radial meter, and visualization name is also the same. You can go ahead and take the liberty of calling them two separate things. So this is the place where I'll start with the build process. Is there, okay. Okay. If there is any question, you can go ahead and ask. Otherwise, please go on mute. All right. Thank you. All right. So I will just keep this folder also open here. And it's my radial meter app. Right now, if you notice, we have got webpack config file, we have got package JSON config file. For Windows users, there will be a step required here where they need to change this Splunk home path from dollar Splunk home to dollar Splunk home to percent Splunk home. Kindly do that accordingly. But we will just follow along the steps right now. So first thing that we need to do is, let me just paste the steps here. So I'm putting it in WebEx as well as Splunk User Group, our chat. We will just follow along the steps, and I'll just explain what is happening in each of those steps. So there are some things specifically for Mac, and there are some things specifically for Windows. We will just proceed. Okay. So first thing that we need to do is we need to set the default directory for Splunk Home, and for my use case, it is applications. Oh, okay. Sorry, I should have made it larger. So let me know if this is visible. All right. So first thing that we'll do is we will set the application path and make sure it is correct. And then we can just copying the folder over I've already done. So I just need to proceed with the step for Xcode. Now this is applicable for Mac alone. For Windows folks, I mean, every time you see dollar, you have to actually replace it with percent before and percent after. That would be the change for Windows. So let me just do this. So Xcode is installed on Mac, then license agreement is something that you have to do. So I'll just go ahead and agree to Xcode license because I've got Xcode installed on Mac as well. But actual process for our visualization starts from here, because otherwise there is some difficulty in installing Node. So that's why I've done that Xcode thing first. You can actually try with npm install directly if it doesn't prompt for any error message or something. All right, so we have installed Node, and the moment I did this, is there a question? No? All right. The moment I did this npm install, right, what you would notice is there is a new folder that got created here for all the node modules. And we just have to follow along as we are trying to go through the remaining steps. All right, so we will try to do the next step here. Those who have got the code from Google Drive or even GitHub, these instructions which I've pasted in a couple of places and I'm using right now, they are present in that repository as well. So next thing that I'm going to do is get D3 installed. And one thing about it is that in the Splunk docs, it asks you to install a particular version, which is now about 2 years old. That's why we want to get the latest version. And we will actually fix the things accordingly, right? So I've already fixed those things in the template, and I'll talk about those things when I go to the code. All right. So we have installed the latest version 5.1.6. The moment I did that, D3 folder gets created here, and we'll just proceed with the remaining steps. So it's just installation of some other component. So after D3, we will get underscore for all the, oops, for the all the template functionality that we want to call within custom visualization code. We will try to get underscore, and then finally jQuery. Oh, okay, sorry. jQuery. And it creates those folders here as we are trying to do this. So now we've got to a step where we can actually build the template. Okay, so template is the base version which I've shared. We all will obviously want to add some functionality on top of it, right? So we'll just build the base functionality first. So the moment I do this build, and if I go back, this comes up saying that visualization JS got created and it used my particular source file. I've not shown the source file yet, but from the source file, visualization JS got created. It is giving a warning because Webpack is aiming for a threshold size for this final distributable code, but it's crossing that, but we can ignore for the time being. What I wanted to show was this visualization JS is picking up current time. So it got updated. The moment we built it, this has got updated. So now what we want to do is, because we have done our first time build, we will open a new incognito window, and we may have to restart Splunk also to see the changes, but we will just try to see whether our custom visualization is available here or not. So my radial meter is the custom visualization that we were trying to build, and it actually shows up here. So we'll just click on this. We still can't see an icon to it, right? There is no icon to it. It always says the generic app logo against it. And it's got the basic functionality. We don't have tooltip or drill down available. All right, no extra formatting option. Actually, it has. So I should have restarted. So seems like it is picking up previous version from my build. So let me just go to server control. Restart once. Okay. But this should get you to a place where your code is set up. While it's doing that, I'll come to the code and I'll just check the changes that we have to do, right? So some of the changes for adding icons is straightforward. I mean, like I've provided these icons here with underscore name. Splunk is looking for something called preview PNG within its visualization folder. And that is what, in my case, I've created using draw.io. You can have something custom from your custom repository within your organization, or else you can create your own. Also, advisable thing is to make sure that this PNG is transparent so that it adjusts to the switch between regular mode and dark mode. In my case, it is not transparent, but I mean, that's just an advice. You can go ahead and change yours. So I'll just go ahead and change these folders, these files within static folder, and these will make sure, this will make sure that within Splunk, these apps will show up with icon. So while I'm trying to do this, yeah, go ahead.
One question I wanted to ask. So, yes, like you were installing Node.js and all that, right?
Yes.
So, so this would just be required when I'm making this visualization, right?
Yes.
Made this visualization, I want to export it to a secondary system. I wouldn't need Node.js installed there, right? It would be on my primary system where I'm making it, right?
That's exactly correct. So the folder that I'm actually I was just showing you that node module folder, entire folder will not be required once you have created the app. All you're interested in your final visualization.js. So I'll just show you in a bit, like while we are trying to go over it, right? Let me try to show you that thing. So this is the visualization source. This is the place where we have coded a lot of things, right? And let's pick up any of the things that we know will be there for sure. For example, this is a constant which has to be used in our source code, and from this particular source code, our build process actually created this visualization JS file, right? So this is your final deployable code. And if you notice here, because of Webpack, it has completely minified it. All the variable name has become single character, right? And let's search for, now it is really difficult for us to search also, but then let's search for that thing, right? So now if you notice here, our setting is present here, and we actually notice count IE4 also, right? IE4 is present over here. If I go back here, that was the next variable. 10,000 in hexadecimal is IE4. So because it's consuming 5 character, your Webpack has actually reduced it to something deployable, and it has converted into hexadecimal code. So what you have to do is you have to use this as your final distributable JS file, not everything else. You can go ahead and delete, and that's what I have also done when I shared the template with you. And that's the only reason why we had to go through the process of installing all those things again, because I had removed Node.js, all the dependencies when I shared this template. All right, answers?
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, buddy.
All right. So what we have to do is, I'm pretty much sure that some of the things, like I didn't restart because of which the setting was available, but I'm actually going to go ahead and make the remaining changes quickly because now I have less time. So I'm just going to make those changes and and I will talk about what each of these changes mean. So okay. So first thing is, within your apps folder, like visualization folder, there is something called savedsearches.conf. So this particular configuration is used when you are actually adding a formatter option. For example, you remember in single value, we can actually choose between whether I want to show a trend indicator or whether I just want to show it regular value without sparkline and all those settings. So when we choose those settings, how do we pass the default value? So that is what save searches conf will be used for. So this is, first one is the app name. Don't confuse both being same. First one is the app name, second one is the visualization name, and third one is the option that we have created. So we are calling something called main color and something called max value as two of my parameters that will be available for formatting. All right. So the moment we change this, we have to go to README, and we have to actually give some documentation detail. Now, this is not absolutely necessary step, but this helps other coders, right? So just tell them that, first one is string, second one is float. So something like that. So we will actually enable, we will uncomment these two codes. And this is exactly what has to be done in the template as well. All right. Then we'll go to visualization.conf. And at this point of time, let's see whether Splunk restarted or not. Okay, maybe it did. So I'll just open this, and I just wanted to show you with existing thing, right? So that it is clear as to what we are changing here or what is being controlled. Sorry, I typed right. Okay, it logged in. Okay. So whenever we open a visualization, yeah, so see, I mean, after restart, see, trellis is gone because we have those code commented out. So it should not be available. Formatting options are not there. If I click on format, nothing happens. Drill down and trellis, all of these are disabled by default. And this is what will happen with most of the custom visualizations. And that's what we're trying to do now. But let's say if I open any of this search query, there is something that is already available in Splunk and we may not have given it much thought. But the moment I hover over any of the chart, if you notice towards the bottom, all right, there is a search fragment, right? It says line chart. I have picked area chart, and then there is a description, and then there is a search fragment. So search fragment is basically a hint for users for them to understand what would be the use case of the visualization. And this is what I told, right? It is very important for us to let people know that, whether it fits their needs or not, this visualization. All right. So I'll just go back to the code. And so this is that search fragment. It's a hint as to what kind of query you should run so that the visualization works. We are going to enable a couple of more things, and that is, this visualization should support trellis. Even if we directly enable it from here to true, it may not work depending on the visualization. So that's why you always get that warning message. In our case, it is working because it's a simple visualization. All right. When we enable support drill down to true, doesn't mean it will start doing drill down out of the box. This means that we will have to code it, and that's what we will do next. All right. So we'll move to some other things. But before I do that, within local folder, I've created two things. I've created my own apps navigation, and I've created my own dashboard, which I'm using for the demo. So in that demo, I've actually commented out, but when we deploy, right, when you package it and you want to deploy on Splunk base, you have to make sure that all your code should move from local to default, and that is a regular practice, right? We should never keep our code in local when we are actually making something release ready, right? Otherwise our changes will get overridden. All right. So we'll go ahead, and I'll just for reference, I'll just open Webpack. I'll just talk about a couple of things here. So Webpack config, we don't have to change anything, but it is quite important for our build to work. For Windows users, again, if you don't make that node module change, right, in package.json file here, if you don't change this from %Splunk home %, your build will fail. Okay. So just make sure that you are actually changing dollar to % for Windows, people trying out on Windows. Okay, so package.json is required for that. And if you can notice, these are all the dependencies that have been compiled, and they're all latest. Okay, so that is what I was trying when I created the template. And then come back to Webpack. Webpack, what it does is basically it takes an entry point, which is my JS file. This is where you can actually call it your own name, but it always should be writing to visualization.js. If you change the name, it may not work because of internal dependency. I mean, if you can figure it out, you can actually change that as well. But I did not change the output folder name. Okay. And for dependencies, it is using node modules. Externals, if you notice, within Splunk, there are two things that your custom visualization needs. Everything related to visualization is coming from visualization base package, and special things, right? For example, utilities like security related stuff, where let's say from UI you have given a text box to your visualization. You want to make sure that if URL is being passed through that text box, it is URL safe. So that cross-site scripting and all those kind of things cannot, injection kind of activities may not happen. So those kind of utilities are what is coming from Splunk visualization utils. All right. So so no changes here. Visualization.js we will not change. Visualization CSS allows you to control CSS behavior of your visualization. I will just uncomment this couple of CSS styles. But then again, these styles, these are just cosmetic things, and you can actually control this via CSS afterwards as well. Sorry, CSS extension afterward as well. So I'm actually just uncommenting these things for our CSS to be applied to for our visualization. All right. Formatter HTML is the XML kind of form which will allow you to create your own formatting options for your visualization. And this is the place where we were actually looking at a couple of options, right? We want to give dial color, which is a color code, and we want to keep a max value for our visualization, which is being set to 100 in this particular case. So this is the second place, right? So we have seen safesearches.conf. It can be defaulted in formatter HTML itself. We can default it, and I'll actually just show you third place where it has to be handled as well, so that we make sure that if value is not present, at least it is getting defaulted whenever being used. All right, and then we'll go to our source code. All right. So So this first piece is for applying dark theme, all right? And again, if you notice, it is coming from visualization utils. It is one of the utilities which actually gives you current theme being applied. If it is dark theme, then we will apply background color and all those stuff. In our case, this particular visualization, we are using this dark theme for tooltip that we are trying to use afterwards. So one of the good thing around code, right? I mean, any variable that is not being used, it actually shows in lighter color. So we definitely know that there is some other code to be uncommented as well. So I'll just scroll down a bit. And this is the piece for drill down. All right. So drill down is actually trying to pull from the configuration. We have just now set a configuration that drill down should be enabled. So first thing that we should always check is whether drill down is enabled, and then we should take action whether we will allow drill down or not, or basically how we will allow the drill down. So within drill down, this is the first piece which actually just changes the cursor. It's not the actual code. It's just changing the cursor. Whenever there is a section where drill down is available, obviously you want your pointer to change into hand so that people know that this is the place that they have to click on. All right. So we'll just go down a bit. Now, a couple of functions, right? I told that D3 version on Splunk docs was 3 point something, because of which I have upgraded and some of the things I have fixed. So this particular call was d3.scale.linear, and this thing was d3.something.arc. So, I've actually just converted them to the latest function so that it works. Okay. Other than that, I didn't have to change any other function calls in this particular example. All right. Now, second part for us, right? This particular visualization that came as a template from Splunk docs had background style set to white. Obviously, we should not be doing that. The moment I comment this, what will happen is it will just set by default, it will set the background to transparent, and it will adjust as per your, regular light mode versus dark mode. So that is the intent here, and that's what I want to do. So I'll just comment it out, and it will take care of visualization not showing up white with white background when the theme is dark. All right. So, so other thing is, whenever we have a section, so this particular visualization name, right? Scalable vector graphics. So D3 is using scalable vector graphic. I hope you are aware. If not, we can definitely chat. But SVG allows you to set these properties. And what we are trying to turn on is a couple of things. One is cursor style. We just now set the cursor style. So set the cursor style as per needed. And then second one is bind the click event with this particular object, right? So we have actually, if someone is hovering over this path, then allow the click event to happen. So something like that I have enabled in a couple of places, like actually 3 to be precise. So I'll just uncomment these. Now, next section is a tooltip. I have not used HTML tooltip here. I have created a tooltip from using D3 with help of SVG directly. So the tooltip is a toggle kind of code that I've written so that it shows up like a tooltip. All right. So it's not an actual tooltip. So let me uncomment. And within tooltip, a couple of things again are being done is I've just coded a couple of events here, right? Mouse over, mouse out, and we are just making it visible or hidden depending on that. So that's the functionality of tooltip, and we are actually drawing tooltip with the data which is available. If you notice here, D3 contains the data as well. So final thing is, this is our actual drill down code, and actually a couple of those things here. What did I do? Oh, sorry, I uncommented one extra line. So yeah, so one of the things is, like I talked about that safety, right? Type safety thing. So we should always pass the configuration that we get from UI, and we should make sure that it is going through that escape HTML property, right? And this is what this line and this line combined is doing. And then this is our actual drill down code. So in our drill down code, what we are trying to do is whatever data is being used, we are actually assigning it to value, a payload data called value. Just remember this name because that is what we will use in the front end. So I will just save the changes here. And again, hopefully the changes will work. And I will try to build this code again. I have around 5 minutes to complete this. So any questions I can take while this is being built and I'm trying this out. Oh, everybody left or what? All right.
One question.
Yeah. Hey, Pramit.
So, I mean, it's you covered it long back. So that Windows and Mac, that Splunk Home change, right? I believe
Yes.
it's in that as part of our app. I mean, when you deliver that, right? You don't send that part, do you?
So build steps, right? If you notice the build steps, I have actually just mentioned it as a note, like, this is what needs to change. For example, for Mac, I did an export, but on Windows, you have to actually do a set. You don't need to echo, but then within your package JSON, I actually kind of covered during demo also that you have to just change $Splunk home to %Splunk home %, and that should work.
Yeah, I understood that. But what I'm saying is, when you delivered that app, right? Do you send that?
No, not required. Not required. This is only for build process. Correct. You're right. You're right. So once we have built it, it will work irrespective of where it's running. Correct. That's right.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, I misunderstood the question. So again, I might have to restart this, but let's see. Okay, yeah, I might have to restart this. Or else I would have missed some code to comment and comment. If it doesn't work, we'll just give it one more try. But then I think we are on top of the hour, so I'll just try to wrap it up here, and I'll just try to show whatever is working. So let it come up. All right, so trellis is working. We applied our own color as well. So you can see that default color is this orange, but we have applied blue. Whenever I'm hovering, you can see that tooltip is present. If I click on it, so there are two types of drill down. Okay, so one is the regular drill down. This is what we had coded. All right. And then if you have enabled trellis, you can access trellis related stuff as well. Like for example, what is the component name? What is the field name and what is the field value? So those two things also you can get. I'll just go ahead and show you that one value thing that I asked you to remember. That formatting options are available now. If I just go to drill down. Oh, wow. Okay. So yeah. Here I have not done a drill down, right? So let me enable. I purposely left this drill down because I just wanted to show it here. So I'm actually going to create a token called token single drill down. And how I'll use that value is that we will have a predefined token name row dot that particular field that we set in our payload, which was value right from the backend. So that is what we will use, and we'll just say apply. Save it, and if I click on it, it will just drill down to that value. Everywhere icon is also present. If you would notice here, only icon is present, name is not present now. Icon is present with the app everywhere else as well. So that was the complete demo I just wanted to give. We have covered, I think, a lot of ground here, and we are on top of the hour as well. So just go ahead and ask questions if you have any. None? All right, so I will leave with this particular slide.
Hey, one second, Niket. I mean, if you could also post the link to the survey in this itself, in the WebEx session, as well as in the uh, user groups, that will be helpful.
Hey, the link will not be available for us to share directly, but we can just
Okay.
let people know.
Okay, sure.
All the folks who have attended today's session, you will be given a feedback link after this gets over. Please make sure that you fill it out. It helps us plan all these things correctly. So please help us out by responding to the survey. Yeah, let me just present this screen once. Okay. Yeah, so there are a lot of references. We had actually not talked about packaging the app once we are done with our visualization development, and once we are done with our visualization coding, we should also make sure that it passes app inspect. And one of the reasons I've already shown, right, it actually ensures robustness in your app, and more people are likely to download your app afterwards. This particular sessions, there are a couple of sessions that I have provided a link from .conf last year, and they talk about custom visualization in the new dashboard framework. So that is another thing I just wanted to show here. Thank you, everyone. Yeah.
Okay. Again, Niket, I think we can't hear you again. Not sure if you got muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. When I unshared, it kind of muted me as well. So I think, yeah, that's everything that we had. I hope you liked the session. If you didn't, do let us know. If you want specific topics to be presented, let us know. If you are interested in presenting in user groups, do let us know.
Yep, and we saw some pretty experienced people on the sessions today, so
yes.
Look forward to some more interactions in the future, and hopefully we'll build something really cool. So even if you guys take these ideas, build your own add-on, build your own visualization, and you just want to show it to everybody, it'll be like a cool thing that we can do for the next session. So just show us what kind of data you got in and how you're presenting it. So it might be like pretty cool there.
To the point. Thank you.
Thank you everybody for joining. It was, I know we seen a lot of feedback on the forum that you would prefer these sessions over weekends. So we'll definitely plan the next one over a weekend itself. But we do appreciate you guys taking the time to attend these sessions. So thank you very much. And we're hoping that coronavirus, sorry. Oh, say that again, Niket?
Join us on Slack so that we can collaborate more.
Yeah, and we're also looking for feedback from you guys because we don't know during this COVID situation how we can actually make it more interactive. So if you have some suggestions, how we can interact, be more closer to each other, and how we can actually kind of do these things, it'll be good. Maybe we could even plan like a beer session over a weekend. So let us know. Let's make this fun.
All right. Thanks, everyone.